Hi, good morning. This is Monday, March 2nd, the Daily Spark Day 61 question. It's our last day here in this hotel. I don't know what day. Day 4 of training. So it's going into the last day of training. I'm feeling extra sensitive today, and that's expected. I'm also noticing like the sunrise looks really pretty. Can you see it? I see like the golden shimmers on the curtains. So the question is, how does repeated exposure shape what feels normal, tolerable, or inevitable? Oh God, why did this question come up on day 4 of my trauma training? Oh my God. Repeated exposure, dudes. Oh my God. Oh, my elbow needed to pop. How does repeated exposure shape what feels normal, tolerable, or inevitable? Well, friends, this could be my entire dissertation of my life. So I think knowing that, I'm gonna have to just keep it short. So short. We could do a year of videos on this topic. Repeated exposure is like, it's like when childhood trauma, like I've been saying more and more about that. And now that I'm like in this training, like picking back up my somatic experience. Well, it's not even like I picked it back up. I've been doing it for a few years. So it's like, this is what I think about a lot. And with my own trauma, it's considered complex trauma, or you could call it complex PTSD, because it was repeated exposure, so it's in that category of like what they kind of relate it to like war, people who had the repeated exposure to war or repeated exposure to violence or repeated exposure. Like, it's called complex because it's not just one incident, it's repeated, so it develops patterns. So sometimes we're not working with one situation, one event, one incident. It's like patterns that show up within because of repeated exposure. So that's what I've been working on in myself. Is like, I have these patterns that feel normal, tolerable, inevitable. So it's like, yes, that's my dissertation. Where to begin? I need a what do you call it in grad school when you get an advisor? Yeah, I need to consult my advisor to help me like narrow my dissertation topic. So repeated exposure. Well, for me personally, without going into the details, it's like, how does it shape what feels normal? That's everything. When it happens in those formative years, for me, between the ages of 3 and 8, hello. That's like from the age of like, from the womb to age 7 is like what people in developmental psychology call like, those are the years, man. You're being programmed by your surroundings, your family, but that's where all your conditioning really takes root. Then from like age 7, 8 and above, they say like, you're starting to develop your own sense of self. You're still getting some programming, but it's like from ages like 0 to 7, or like, you have no choice. It's not like you have a sense of self to put those things in context, like the conditionings. So that's where I'm just wanting to say all that, because that's where my head is with like what feels normal is like what I was conditioned with, which was witnessing extreme violence, and like so much, like that's just one subcategory of like trauma that I was talking about in the last. Basically, it's all under the umbrella of inescapable attack. So my repeated exposure to that, like what felt normal was me being trying to be unseen, unheard for safety. So like whenever I'm seen or heard, or like I say, like I go outside of like allowing myself to be seen or heard, it feels extreme. It has felt, I'm working on it, so it doesn't feel as unsafe these days, but oh my God, that's been my whole life. Like, don't, you are unsafe when you do that. And that's not happening up here. It's happening in my nervous system, like the rest of me, my other brain, my body, because it was just conditioning. It was all pre-age 8, so it's like, it's hard sometimes to work with that because it's not something I can get to from here. Here, it's like, dude, you're fine. You're safe. Look around, right? You can say what you want. You can be seen. Like, the mind isn't going to be able to fix this conditioning pre-age 8. So that's where my head's at. And so that's what felt normal, is like, be quiet. And then that became an identity of like, oh, you're the peaceful one, you're the calm one, you're the quiet one, you're the wallflower. So I took to writing, and I do love poetry and all those things, and I tended toward like, I like the deeper subject matters of like, it was all happening in here. Like, I felt like wise beyond my years, from what I had dealt with and seen and like thought about for so long and wrote about, and like, but it wasn't stuff that was like coming out. And when it would come out, because to me it felt normal to like, this would embody all these things, these like deep, dark topics. And to me, they didn't feel dark. Like, to write and think and feel about death and like loss and like all these like things. And I could watch violence on the TV. I didn't prefer it, but like I would watch, like I was obsessed with horror movies and thinking that like I liked them, but there must have been something about it that was like, like when people who have been like in those situations of extreme danger or violence, like we keep putting ourselves in dangerous situations to like feel the stimulation, like the endorphin rush or something. That's a real thing. And so I'm like, yeah, I would do that. I became an extreme like mountain biker. I jumped out of an airplane. I wanted to learn how to fly airplanes. Like, I wanted to go high. I wanted to learn how to dive. I wanted to travel wide. Like, I wanted to go to every physical extreme, And otherwise, I just felt sedated, bored, like unstimulated. And that's all related to those formative years. So all of that felt normal to me. It did not feel normal to feel settled in my body, like, oh, this isn't boredom. It's just like peace, So it's nice having all that awareness now, but they're still working with the residual like, that comes up from time to time. So yeah, there's a lot, because what feels like normal, I talked about that, like, yeah, it's normal for me to like ride full speed in the rain on a single track on my mountain bike, clipped in, like, or like jumping out of a plane or whatever. Like, it just felt normal to do extreme stuff. And then tolerable, it like, part of me, it activated something in me. Like, it would rise that like tension in me, the endorphins, whatever, to a point that felt tolerable, but also felt a little dangerous. Like, oh, how much more can I tolerate? And I was always like trying to push that envelope, And that was before my cognitive awareness of all these reasons why I was doing that. But, in hindsight, everything makes sense. And it's like, oh, God, girl, and I never broke any bones. I have no idea why. Must have strong bones. I have a lot of scars. Oh, a lot of scars, though. And that's a whole other, like, metaphor. But anyway, or inevitable. So there's how does repeated exposure shape what feels normal, tolerable, or inevitable is like an interesting one to me, because that means like I have no choice. Like inevitable means this is the outcome. Like this is what has to happen. There's no other choice. And I've written so much in my own journaling over the years about, like, every time I find a journal that I haven't thrown away, I've like tossed so many over the years, with like moving 27 times by the age of 35. Hello, that fits into this category of like, I gotta escape. And that felt normal to me. It felt abnormal to stay in one place and feel at peace. I was like, oh, something's not right here. Eject. So I would lots of times writing about like living at the extremes of like nothing and everything, completely probably dissociated, and then completely like, living at the peak of activation. And so it's like something in me always wanted to flow in that nice big middle, peaceful, like be able to actually flow between, instead of like being pegged at one end or the other. Because intuitively I know I didn't really want that, even though I always like sought out like the extremes, like, God, I'm so extremey. But part of that felt inevitable, like, oh, that's me. That's just who I am. Like it felt like an inevitable identity. Like there is no choice. That's just me. Yet, and it took a long time for me to realize the thing that didn't feel right about that was like when I look out in the world and I'm like, there's so many examples of like people who are not that way, and they seem like more balanced and like well-rounded and enriched, strong in a real way. So like that inner sense of self that felt like empowered. Whereas I felt from the outside, it might have seemed like I was empowered. I don't know if it did. I'm having a hot flash. But like doing these things, it might have felt like I've always gotten the words, oh, you're so brave, and independent and gutsy and all those things. But is that empowered? Not necessarily. Certainly didn't feel that. And now that I do, it's like, now that's the hindsight. It's like, oh, all that stuff was, woo, it was playing out for the conditioning of my 0 to 8 years old, 3 to 8, So this, like I said, dissertation, that this is the story of my life. How does repeated exposure shape what feels normal, tolerable, or inevitable? So, do you relate with this in any way? Because we all got something. And yours may have actually just come later in life. Like I talked to my husband about this. I won't share his story, but he had like this idyllic childhood. So I'm like, do you have any trauma? Like, do you have anything in there? Bless you, child, that you don't, But he shared some stuff that came later in life. So I know that's a thing. Like, and that can be equally challenging to work with, to work through. So it doesn't have to come from those early years, the repeated exposure. So what about you? This is can be a very vulnerable topic. And we're just scratching the surface, man. We're just like, we're not even scratching. We're just like tiptoeing over the surface. Like we're not even letting the surface crackle under our feet with this one. It's deep. It's like, whoa. So yeah, it makes me want to do a lot of exploration on this with my own stuff as examples, because there are things I'm still working through. And actually, as of yesterday, and the last couple of days of this training, there was some stuff that like I was able to work with. And then I woke up today feeling very sensitive, which is definitely something that happens when you're working through trauma. It's like It's like this. Okay, I'm done for a while. That's just like, I'm just a sensitive little baby. God, don't touch me. You know, we're going back into like a little, the womb of like reorganizing like all the stuff that comes up and wants to like reorganize, is what we call it, into like a new, like the things that always wanted to happen, that always wanted to complete within us and got thwarted. It's complete, it had a chance to complete, and now we're reorganized. We are becoming physically, like literally physically different. And so I woke up this morning after a few days of trauma healing. In this training, we work with our own nervous systems. Like, it's real stuff. We're not just role playing. And it's like, oh, is it over yet? Like, I'm excited for day 4, but I'm also like, okay, self-care, tenderness, allowing myself to just be and be seen in this state. Because by day 4, thinking back to my prior cohort, like we're all kind of feeling this, and we're all like gentle with each other. Like, I notice we speak quieter, we speak more quietly, and are like, good morning, how you doing, you know. And then we're very like, this is a very asking permission kind of group, which is wonderful. It's a good thing to model. It's like, do you want a hug? I'm here if you want a hug, you know. And some people will be like, no, I'm good, or yes, I really, you know. So it's like, we're very much like, I'm here for support, and are you okay, you know. And some people are just like, I probably fall into this category a lot of times, just like, I just want to go in my cocoon, you know, from old conditioning. I don't want to be seen in this vulnerable state, you know. I'm becoming less that way, like expressing vulnerability, and that's nice. But anyway, these are just things that can happen when we start to become aware of the repeated exposure and what it's done to our system. And as we work on it, it's like, oh, we're working with the patterns of our lives after repeated exposure to really traumatic stuff. So really hard things. Dissertation, push pause for now. Bye.